Okay, let's talk about something that's, well, not exactly glamorous, but it is absolutely vital for your home's health. We're talking about mainline rotting. I want you to think of your home's plumbing like its circulatory system. And that main sewer line, that's the aorta, the biggest artery of them all. And when it gets clogged, everything, and I mean everything, backs up.
Does any of this sound familiar? You know that sinking feeling you get when you flush the toilet and the water starts to rise just a little too high for comfort? Or maybe it's that slow, gurgling sound from a sink that just refuses to drain properly. Trust me, you're not alone, and it's usually a warning sign for something much bigger.
So, here are the clues. You start to notice that it's not just one drain. The kitchen sink is slow, but so is the shower. You hear these weird gurgling noises coming from the toilet when the washing machine drains. Or, the worst-case scenario, you get actual wastewater backing up or these really foul odors. These aren't just a bunch of separate, random issues.
And this right here is the key. When multiple parts of your home's plumbing start acting up all at once, that is a huge red flag. It's telling you the problem isn't with a single small pipe under a sink. No, the problem is deep down in the main line that they all connect to.
So let's put on our detective hats for a second and figure out what's really happening down there. What is causing this whole house plumbing traffic jam?
It all comes back to this one critical pipe, the main sewer line. Every single drop of water from your toilets, your sinks, your showers, your dishwasher, it all ends up here. This is the one big pipe that carries all that wastewater away from your house. So naturally, when it gets blocked, there's literally nowhere for the water to go except back the way it came.
And like any good mystery, we've got a lineup of the usual suspects. Let's meet the culprits who are responsible for this massive blockage in your home's main artery.
The causes can be all sorts of things, really. You've got grease and cooking oils that go down the drain liquid, but then they cool and harden, basically creating cholesterol for your pipes. Hair and soap scum are a classic combo that builds up over time. Then you have foreign objects, things that should never have been flushed in the first place. And a big one is tree roots. They are drawn to the water in your sewer line and can actually break into the pipes. And sometimes it's just old age. Older pipes get corroded and rough, and they just love to snag debris.
So here's the real takeaway. These huge, potentially really expensive problems, they almost always start small. It's those little everyday habits, like rinsing a greasy pan in the sink or flushing those so-called flushable wipes, that add up over the years to create one massive headache.
Okay, we figured out the problem. We've got our diagnosis. Now let's talk about the treatment. How do we actually perform surgery on that clogged artery and get things flowing again? This is where mainline rotting comes in. At its core, it's a mechanical cleaning process. We're not talking about pouring some chemicals down the drain and crossing our fingers. No. This is a direct, physical intervention that's designed to go right to the source of the problem and break it apart or pull it out.
The process itself is actually pretty straightforward. A professional will find an access point, which is usually a pipe in your basement or your yard called a cleanout. Think of it like a service hatch for your sewer. They feed a long, flexible cable powered by a motor into the pipe until it hits the clog. The special tool on the end of that cable then gets to work, cutting, grinding, or snagging the blockage until the path is totally clear and your water can finally drain away.
And I really need to emphasize this point. As simple as it might sound, this is absolutely not a weekend DIY project. If you use the wrong equipment or even the right equipment the wrong way, you could just make the clog worse or, and this is the real nightmare scenario, you could seriously damage your pipes. That turns a simple plumbing problem into a huge, expensive repair.
So, since you're not going to do it yourself, what should you expect when you call in a professional? Knowing what a proper service call looks like can save you a ton of stress.
A real pro isn't just going to show up and start ramming things down your drain. They're going to start by actually listening to you and assessing the symptoms. They'll find the right access point, use the right-sized equipment for your pipes, and if the clog is being really stubborn, they might even suggest a camera inspection to get eyes on exactly what they're dealing with.
But at the end of the day, everything they do is all about one simple but crucial goal: to get the wastewater flowing out of your house and away from it smoothly and reliably, exactly the way it's supposed to.
All right, the immediate crisis is solved. The drains are clear. Fantastic. But let's talk about the future. How do you stop this from just happening all over again in a few months?
The best defense is a good offense. And prevention here is surprisingly simple. Scrape grease and food scraps into the trash, not down the sink. And please,
Be really careful about what gets flushed. Just because a package says flushable does not mean it's good for your plumbing. 9 times out of 10, it's not.
So here's the bottom line. Mainline rotting isn't just some temporary Band-Aid. It's a powerful, hands-on solution that gets right to the heart of the problem and clears that obstruction at its source, bringing your home's plumbing back to full health.
Which really just leaves us with one last question to think about. We've established your home's plumbing is its circulatory system. So now that you know all the warning signs, is it maybe time for a checkup?